Oh, yeah.
What?
Hola.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I'm not drunk.
Welcome to Movie Pain or Pleasure Podcast, the show that puts a little puce in your pop.
Oh, what the fuck?
It'll make sense later.
No, it won't.
Yes, it will. I have it written in my notes.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yep, it made sense. So, welcome to, I guess, our Christmas special for this year. We're not doing a review of a bunch of Christmas movies like we did last year. We did talk about A Christmas Story Christmas in our previous episode, and we are also talking about a Christmas movie in this episode.
With a very confusing name.
Is it, though? It's called Santa Claus the Movie.
Yeah, but that always makes me think of Tim Allen.
This predates Tim Allen. This movie is from 1985.
It's definitely from the 80s.
It's definitely from the 80s. I was aware of this because I grew up in the 80s. I was aware of it, but I don't think I ever saw it. I remember seeing a commercial for it.
I could see how it wouldn't have caught on.
Yeah. So this movie stars Dudley Moore, a lovable little drunk scamp, Dudley Moore. David Huddleston as kind of a hot, rugged Santa. David Huddleston, you know him as an older man. He was the rich Lebowski in The Big Lebowski. I'd always seen him as an old man. I'd never seen him as a younger man in anything. And John Lithgow is the villain, and man, does he chew up scenery.
He's a fucking Disney villain, and it's awesome.
He really is. So, my name is Melanie. This is AJ. So, it starts out somewhere in the far north, somewhere, Scandinavia or wherever, and there are these... Somewhere. They all have American accents. Or some have British accents.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
just a big old hodgepodge. It's kind of like Babe.
Yeah, Babe, where it's like, is it America, England, or Canada?
Also Willy Wonka.
Also Willy Wonka, yeah, with Americans and Brits just kind of mingling. So there are these people that are in a cabin, and an old lady is telling a story.
And these kids want her to hurry the fuck
up. They're the most deadpan
like...
kids, like, I can't wait for Christmas. They didn't really give these child actors much direction.
Yeah. But Santa's coming, so...
Santa's coming, so hot, rugged mountain man David Huddleston comes with his wife, and she's just whatever, but I'm like, you could do better, David Huddleston. So he shows up, and he carves these wooden toys, and they carve the elves, and there's a name that he has for them.
And
it's
he
a weird
transports them like an asshole in a bag.
What?
He's got a bunch of wooden toys in a bag.
I mean, excuse me, the term is sack?
Okay... He pulls wooden things out of a sack. If Amazon came to your door with a big old sack of shit on his shoulder, just all jumbled up, and he's like, here's your shampoo, all smashed and shit from all the other things that was bouncing against it, would you be happy?
No.
Also,
fuck Amazon, but...
My point being, Santa doesn't know how to fucking prepare his units.
Wow, okay, so picking at little details here. So he brings toys and all that stuff, but right now he's just a regular dude. So not Santa at the time and his wife leave the village to go take toys to another village. Like, do they really need toys or do they need food?
I mean, they're probably freezing in their homes.
Maybe they need firewood. Maybe they can use those wooden elves for firewood.
Oh, fuck, man.
Yeah, what?
Thanks, Santa. Throws that shit in the fireplace.
Hey, it's
that's why he comes down the fireplace.
To get revenge.
Maybe.
For all those burned
puts out everybody's fires
elves.
with his fat ass.
Are you fat shaming Santa Claus? God.
It's fucking Santa.
Okay, so he and his wife and the two reindeer are driving along in the snow, and there's a really hard blizzard. And he's got his furs on and everything, but it's still a really hard blizzard, like worse than north of the wall. So they just expire. They just close their eyes and die.
While Santa was being a dick to the reindeer, like, get up, think of the children. And they're like, it's red rum out here, motherfucker.
So they awake to a great light. And AJ, why don't you explain the vision that soon-to-be Santa Claus has?
A terrifying sea of tiny men come out of the snow. Which at this point I would just assume death. They don't assume death. But this guy's chill. Luckily, not like, be kind of funny if Kanye was the one driving this sled. And going out giving Gucci slippers to kids in poor neighborhoods, and then he died on the way there and woke up, and probably to his eyes like, the Jews are out to get me. They came all the way out in the snow just to put me away. But It's not Kanye, and this guy isn't anti-Semitic, so.
No, it's good for Santa Claus not being anti-Semitic. So he's met by all these little men. It's just a sausage fest of elves.
Isn't this something?
Did you hear that? He said it's something. He did. Oh, my. She likes it. She likes it. She does. She does.
Which I dare say are the opposing nature of the Amazonian women.
Explain.
All the women on the Amazon island or whatever, or, you know, anti-men, whatever, and they're buff as shit and beat the fuck out of dudes all the time, so this is like the opposite. Bunch of tiny men tucked away all alone in not the hot-ass Amazon, but the cold-ass North Pole. It's like the exact opposite. But it would make a really bad DC superhero.
But it's not going to stop them from making a bad DC movie about it. So there's kind of this midsummery vibe to it. Like, this is your home now. You live forever. We've been waiting for you. And Santa's
How could I deliver all these toys? I won't live long enough for that.
Both of you will live forever. Like us.
like,
Like, right.
yeah, and that's the end. And Santa's like, okay,
You're going to live forever.
all right. And they have this really long scene of the elves making toys. My God, it was.
They really like to drag out, like, look how whimsy it is. Like, see how we make fucking toys that well, they probably made sense in the time period.
Wooden toys and dolls and carts and
Yeah,
things like that. So this is like the 5th century or something.
Although they seem to keep making the same types of toys the entire movie. So even like when it's 1984, when we get up to modern day, they're still making these weird bright red carts and shit. And like, yeah, the kids will love that.
Yeah. And Dudley Moore is an elf there, and he is very industrious. His name is Patch. And he's always trying to kind of mass produce things and create machinery, and he's got all these inventions, so you know that's going to be a thing.
He's got
throughout
ideas.
He's got ideas, which could be
he needs
dangerous.
to be shunned. Like
Yes.
that weird little freaky elf in Rudolph.
Oh, who wanted to be a dentist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people have teeth. So anyway, again, like Santa's kind of apprehensive the whole time, not really sure if he wants the job, and then they do this ritual thing where Burgess Meredith comes out as like the old great wizard of the elves, and they have 6 dudes. He has this really long beard, and they have 6 dudes like holding his beard. And he comes out and he says, "Now begins the endless night for you." And Santa's like, what?
Yeah, I started to wonder about the existentialism of, like, does Santa live a normal time lapse in his brain while he's going through that night? Like, is he on super speed, but it feels like normal speed to him, while everyone else slows down so he can get to everybody in a single night?
Like when the
That would be
Flash runs
torture.
by and
Yeah.
things are slowed down?
Yeah.
Or
be fucking
the
torture.
other thing you said was like maybe it feels like how long it would actually take to get to all the homes in the world.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Years upon years upon years, and you just keep doing it over
and then the
over
next
again.
day is... That's why it takes a year. He's got to recharge.
Yeah.
Which I think, well, they mentioned that with the reindeer. They're like, well, they've only had 4 months to sleep, so...
So speaking of the reindeer, they give them gold Coke.
It's definitely Coke.
It's definitely Coke.
Got a secret ingredient.
They throw this powder, and the reindeer are like,
It's right in their face. They have a very similar reaction to, like, fairy dust and Peter Pan. Like, I guess that's how they fly. Actually, Peter Pan exists in this universe.
what?
Well, it's the same fairy dust stuff.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Because
You
it makes
throw it
them
on
fly.
somebody and they fly.
Oh. What if you just throw it on somebody and they think they can fly?
Accidental suicides.
Yeah, okay.
So,
So, time is passing. They show an hourglass, and Santa's getting used to the job. He's like, yeah, this is cool.
he's picking up little, like, pieces of lore. Like, he gave every kid a toy until this one girl was like, my brother's an asshole. And he's like, Fine, fuck that kid. I'll give him
No,
coal.
his wife
Well.
says it was like 17th century and this kid's fucking with this girl's cat, and so she sends a letter and the letters go up the chimney. And he's like, but every child deserves a toy, and his wife's like, fuck them kids. No. Bad ones don't get anything. They get coal or they don't get anything at all.
She unbuckles her wrist cuffs. And...
So the naughty and nice list begins. So we get a little pieces and like, oh, somebody starts to leave out cookies and he starts wearing red.
And then we
all
get
these things.
like the poem of
Twas
like,
the night before Christmas, and he's like,
all through the
I
house.
have a bowl, like Belly's like a bowl full of jelly.
So he goes on and tie it, which
Yeah.
is funny.
Like super self-aware Santa Claus. I really enunciated that P.
Super.
So super. So anyway, super self-aware Santa Claus is just there's always this kind of hesitancy that I like about him, because he took on the job, or it was, I mean, what would they have done if he'd said no? Because they said, this is your home now. You live here forever.
Yeah, I wonder if he ever looked at Mrs. Claus and was like, oh, shit. Thought I only had to deal with this till I
bitch forever.
died. So-
as Meatloaf said, now I'm praying for the end of time. So we get to modern day in the 80s, and there's this little rich girl named Cornelia who's basically the little girl from Oliver and Company, where the parents
Yes.
are nowhere to be seen. She's in this beautiful brownstone.
She just has a older, like, sort of bitchy, maybe relative.
I think she's a governess, and this woman's acting is not good. She's like, oh, well, you must learn your history. But what I really hate about this bitch, she goes on and on and on. She says, I'm going to the library. Bitch, you did not just say library. Okay, so I have a master's degree in library science, and I've worked as a business and a medical librarian, and nothing gets under my skin more than people saying library. I know. Colloquial, whatever. Everybody speaks differently. No, you can add. You can pronounce that R in library.
What about library?
What?
Library.
That's not a word.
Sure it is.
Don't gaslight me. That's not a word.
Library.
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 That would be the way, you know how Bubble says cigarettes? He said cigarettes.
Yeah.
He would say library.
Library.
Library. So anyway, this bitch has a library. That really bothers me. So there's little rich Cornelia, who's a nice girl, but she really doesn't have a lot of good adults in her life. And there's homeless Joe. And he's this tough kid living on the streets of New York City. And he meets up with Santa Claus. Because Santa Claus looks at him and he's basically like, where are your mommy and daddy? He's like, I don't have any parents.
Hello, son.
Hey, Beat It Man. Find your own doorway. Don't crowd me.
What are you doing out here?
I'm pitching a no-hitter for the Yankees. What's it look like?
Hold on tight, and don't worry. You'll be as safe here as you are in your own home.
I ain't got a home.
And he's like, you're full of shit.
Santa's a fucking, like, very well, I don't want to call him uneducated, but he's a very unaware asshole.
He kind of doesn't, he glosses over the fact that this child is homeless. He's just like, let's get you a wooden rocking horse or whatever.
He kind of acted like, well, yeah, I mean, sure. There are kids without parents who live on the streets.
I don't have parents.
I grew up in, like, East Germany or some shit in the Middle Ages, so maybe it's just normal.
Yeah, like, you're gonna die when you're 35 anyway. So, he never really does much to get Joe a home, but Joe is happy that he gets to ride in his sleigh and all this stuff. Meanwhile, Patch has really tried to get into being innovative and creative and mass manufacturing toys. He thinks this is gonna be a big game changer, so he and another elf have a contest of who can be more efficient.
Because I think population control didn't happen. I think that's why.
Like with humans in general?
Santa needed a helper, a second-hand man to kind of, like, run things while he does the big ideas.
He needed, like,
and
the operations
whatnot.
manager.
So, maybe it's just a population thing. Like, nothing's changed, really, over time, except population.
There's just more people to
So,
give presents
he's got
to.
too many damn people to take care of now. Just stop having kids. Just give Santa a fucking break, man.
Yeah, man.
If
give
not
Santa a
for
break.
global warming, do it for Santa.
Do it for Santa. We can all love Santa. So Patch quits, and he goes to the Muggle world, basically. And this is when
That's one way to look at it.
this is when we meet John Lithgow. And he's a very good actor, but in this one he is just all teeth and all chewing up the scenery. That's one of my favorite expressions. He's very dramatic. And like at one point, Patch shows up in his office because he's a toy maker and he's really corrupt and he's like chewing on cigars and drinking brandy and he just wants money. I want to make money.
And earlier in this scene, like before he even meets Patch, we see that he's under like some investigation for unsafe toy practices. Like there are nails in his teddy bears.
Yeah.
There are nails in his teddy bears. Like how? What the fuck? And he's like, I don't know how these got there.
My favorite John.
Commies!
Oh yeah, he's yelling about commies and unions and stuff like that.
He's Trump.
Maybe. I mean, Trump was a huge thing in the 80s. He was the Donald. And he was kind of the symbol of New York extravagance and wealth.
Reminds me an awful lot of Trump.
Yeah, so Pat shows up, and my favorite John Lithgow moment, he goes, and he just tells you, it's like, oh, I'm an elf. And he says,
An elf? Yes. You mean like a fairy?
so they become partners, and Patch is like, no, I've got some magic formula, because he took this magic gold dust, and he said, I'm going to make the best toy ever. You just give me control. And John Lithgow's like, okay, whatever.
And how much will we charge for them?
Yes. But okay, they come up with a pretty good marketing idea. They are all going to deliver one present for free.
For free?
And it is called the Puce Pop. It is a lollipop, and it just shows up under a Christmas tree. And it's funny because everybody's like, oh, what's this? And they just stick it in their mouths, like not questioning where this came from. Like, did you put this here? Did you? Oh, it's here. Okay. It can make you float. Because we all float. We all float down here. But so he put just enough gold dust that you could float and fly around, but you won't go off into outer space or anything. And so they become a big hit, and their marketing thing was, okay, we'll do the first one for free, but then you have to buy all the additional ones, which that's actually not a bad strategy. Meanwhile...
That's a weird side effect, though, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, if you snort Coke, your heart might explode. If you snort golden reindeer Coke, you might fly into outer space.
Yeah, so don't do drugs. Don't do drugs that make you fly. So, meanwhile, Homeless Joe and Cornelia are becoming friends. She leaves food out for him.
Like a cat.
Like a cat. Just leaves a saucer of milk out for this child. So they become friends, and it turns
pats
out...
him on the head.
Yeah,
Like...
here's the twist. John Lithgow is her evil step-uncle, which I tried to figure out the family... That's more confusing than the Targaryens. Trying to figure out that family tree. So... There's a plan, so things start to go wrong. And meanwhile, Santa's just kind of doing his thing, and nobody likes the old wooden toys. And so they start manufacturing these candy canes, and he tells Patch, John Lithgow tells Patch, put some extra shit in it. And he's like, I don't know, that's kind of dangerous. Put all of it in there. So all the Coke. So Patch discovers that if they get... No, Joe discovers, or somebody discovers, if they get heated, somebody figures it out.
Joe breaks in to the house so he will not freeze to death in the rain.
Yes, and they find out, one of John Lithgow's goons come over.
This Patch guy. He told me he keeps that secret ingredient of his in cold storage because it comes from the North Pole. So we started manufacturing the candy canes. It's a very powerful mixture, you know. So I just assumed I should refrigerate them too.
Damn it, Towser, get on with your story. Stop giving me all these short sentences and making me go, like some kind of a damn moron.
Patch doesn't even know, and he says, if you heat up these candy canes, they'll explode because the lab exploded. Patch doesn't know.
If you happen to have some acid reflux, would that get hot enough to just...
What if you're like partying in a club and stuff?
I want to see that version of this movie.
Where people explode when they have heated candy canes?
Like, and everything's still the same. It's super wholesome. It's whimsy and 80s-ness all over the place. And then there's just this, like, Christmas party going on. And people are, eggnog and shit. They just blood covered. The kids come downstairs halfway through and they get covered in gore. And then they have to go to the cops.
And that's how Bruce Wayne became Batman.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But who would be his villain then?
John Lithgow. So
yes.
anyway, So they
With those
find
big-ass
Joe
teeth.
and they stick him in the basement, and he escapes eventually, but I don't want to go into all those details. And they're like, we can't let people know this secret because we have to make money. And meanwhile, Joe and Santa hook up, and they're like, oh shit, we got to stop them because Patch had created this flying car, and he's going to fly around, deliver all the candy canes. Well, they realize it's going to explode because the car heats up. So Santa...
Also, Patch is kind of terrible at quality control. Like, he's a really, like...
Sorry, I swallowed my spit.
Ugh. He's a great idea guy. Like, he's smart. Not like Elon Musk type of idea guy where he's totally full of shit. Like, he actually knows how to engineer what he's making. He's a little ahead of himself, so he needs a quality control guy to walk up behind him and, like, make sure all of his bolts are in there and shit like that. So,
Yeah.
that's why the car would probably blow up on its own. But
So they say...
now we also have exploding candy canes.
Yeah, exploding. So they save Patch, and I guess they expose John Lithgow, which one of my favorite moments was he's taking Pabst Blue Ribbon and pouring it into a glass of brandy. Maybe it's good, I don't know. And so they just fly off to the North Pole. I don't know where Cornelia's governess is. Her step-uncle doesn't give a shit. I think he's going to jail for racketeering or something.
No. So the end of the movie, after they do a loop-de-loop for no fucking reason.
It's like, I've got to do the certain move to save them, and it was completely unnecessary.
Flown underneath them.
Yeah.
Anyway, we cut back to John Lithgow running because he sees the cops come up down below and arrest his partner.
That's right, yeah.
And he's like, shit, how am I going to get out of this? And he just starts fucking gnawing on all the candy canes. Everything he can get in his mouth. And right when the cops break in, he's just like, opens the window and jumps out. And he floats away. And he never stops.
He just keeps floating into space. So the death count of this movie is at least 1.
Yeah.
There might have been somebody in the lab when it exploded.
And possibly, like, in this movie, he doesn't seem to freeze to death. So he might just have to wait until he starves.
His head didn't implode?
No, he didn't explode or implode or freeze or... In this universe, maybe that doesn't happen. Or the reindeer coke also gives him, like, extended life. So now he's just stuck in space.
Forever.
Until he hits, like, a fucking star. Or a comet. He might get exploded by a comet.
Wow, so that's the end of him. So homeless Joe and Cornelia go with Santa toward the North Pole, and Cornelia's just like, I'll just stay here until next year. I think, don't you have parents?
Well, you have a guardian, but still, like,
She just disappears.
For a whole
No one cares about
year.
homeless Joe.
The great thing about the 80s, they didn't care about little details like your guardians giving a shit that you exist.
There was the butler in Oliver and Company.
Yeah, but...
He cared a little bit.
Yeah, but also that girl was gone for, like, a whole evening and just out and about. We never saw him come looking for her.
Even when she got kidnapped?
And she was on foot. He couldn't find her on foot.
Anyway, so that's Santa Claus the movie, and as much as we kind of complain about it, made fun of it, I think it's a guilty pleasure.
It's fun.
Dudley Moore's good, David Huddleston's good, John Lithgow is amazing.
He's the best part. Like, the shit he does, as far as acting, makes no sense. He screams all the fucking time for no reason.
The people don't want to wait a whole year. They're dying for a sequel. Christmas 2!
I don't know how he got...
He's a better actor than this. He's clearly better.
But that's why I like it. Like, I know he's an amazing actor, so I appreciate that he read this script and he's like, I'm just doing whatever I want. Like, screaming commies at people and getting mad at Patch for saying they're gonna give away free shit. For free?!
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. He's just fucking...
So...
I hurt my throat.
Maybe you should suck on a puce pop.
That sounds awful. I don't care what color it is. That sound... Ugh.
Well, there aren't any left, so be glad about that.
It sounds like something that exists in Harry Potter.
It does.
Like, one of the bad candies that for some reason has a lifespan.
Yeah.
Like Bertie Bott's every flavor beans.
And there's the vomit and the earwax flavor and stuff. Yeah. Okay, so do you have any recommendations besides this movie? This movie is
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Yes, we were so excited when we found it on Disney last night, and we were like little kids. We set up pillows and blankets on the floor, and I had my little tumbler of wine, and we
You know, a 5-year-old
you know,
does.
little kids do, and we watched Ernest Saves Christmas, and it was very funny.
Yeah, I have a guilty pleasure spot in my heart for all Ernest stuff.
I don't think it was as
surprisingly.
good as Ernest Goes to Jail.
It wasn't, but the Santa Claus in that is really good also.
Yes, he's really good.
He's very nice and sweet.
He kind of reminded me of the old gentleman in the original Miracle on 34th Street.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And fucking Ernest is funny as shit.
Yeah, he's funny as hell.
Anyway.
So, yeah, recommendations. So, Christmas 2022.
Oh,
watch
you
Santa
got your
Claus.
own recommendation?
My recommendation was going to be this movie. And
Oh.
Ernest Saves Christmas. Can we not share things in the spirit of giving and stuff?
It just sounds kind of lazy to only say the movie we already talked about and one other.
Do you want to sit on the floor and watch a movie with me again today?
Yes.
Then play your cards right. Show some respect. Okay. So you can follow us and follow our twinkling star and reindeer shit like that. I'm gonna say my usual thing. Join my cult and be my victim. And follow us in a number of ways. Twitch, Discord, YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, and follow us on Instagram at Movie Pain or Pleasure Podcast.
And don't snort too much reindeer coke, or you will fly into space and implode, explode, freeze, or get hit by a comet.